Was I wrong to ban my own mother from my company after she tried to humiliate me in front of my entire staff? I still can't believe what happened, and I need you all to tell me if I overreacted, or if what I did was completely justified. So there I was, standing in the lobby of the tech company I built from nothing, watching security literally escort my mother out of the building, while she screamed that I was an ungrateful daughter who didn't know my place. The looks on my employees' faces, the shock, the second-hand embarrassment, it was all because my mother decided that the company I had spent 7 years building, the company that now employed over 200 people, wasn't really mine at all. She genuinely believed, or at least she told everyone she believed, that I was just some kind of assistant or secretary, and that the real CEO, the real brains behind everything, had to be a man. Let me back up and tell you how I got to this insane moment, because trust me, this didn't come out of nowhere. My name is Rachel, and I'm 34 years old. I started my software development company when I was 27, right after I left a corporate job where I was constantly overlooked despite being one of the top performers. I had this idea for a project management platform that could integrate with existing systems in a way that nobody else was doing at the time. I knew it would work. I knew there was a market for it, so I took my savings, maxed out 2 credit cards, and threw myself into building this thing. The first year was brutal. I was working 16-hour days, coding, pitching to investors, handling customer support, doing literally everything myself. I would fall asleep at my laptop, wake up with keyboard marks on my face, and just keep going. There were nights I survived on nothing but coffee and determination. But slowly it started to gain traction. We got our first major client, then another, then another. I hired my first employee, a brilliant developer named Marcus, who believed in my vision when nobody else did. Then came Sarah, my operations manager, and before I knew it, we were growing faster than I ever imagined. Now, 7 years later, my company is valued at over $50 million. We've got offices in 3 cities, over 200 employees, and we're profitable. I'm proud of what I built. I'm proud that I created jobs and opportunities for people. I'm proud that I proved all those corporate executives who dismissed me completely wrong. But here's the thing about my mother. She never really believed in me. Growing up, she always had very traditional ideas about what women should do with their lives. She was a stay-at-home mom, which is completely fine. That was her choice and I respect it. But she always expected me to follow the exact same path. Get married young, have kids, support my husband's career, keep the house perfect. That was the blueprint she had in mind for me. When I went to college for computer science, she was disappointed. She'd make comments like, "Why do you need a degree like that? You'll just end up quitting when you have babies anyway. Why waste all that money on school?" When I got my first job at a tech company making good money, she'd ask when I was going to find a nice man to settle down with instead of focusing so much on work. She'd say things like, "You're going to end up alone, Rachel. Men don't like women who are too ambitious. You need to tone it down." And when I told her I was leaving my stable corporate job with benefits and a steady paycheck to start my own company, she actually laughed in my face. She said, "Rachel, be realistic. You don't have what it takes to run a business. Women like us aren't meant for that kind of thing. Maybe you should find a nice stable job as an executive assistant instead. That's more suited to your strengths. You're organized and you're good with people. Let some man do the hard thinking." I was devastated, but I was also determined to prove her wrong. So I made a decision. I stopped talking to her about my business. I'd give her vague updates when she asked, but I didn't tell her about our growth, our successes, the investments we secured, the awards we won, none of it. As far as she knew, I was still struggling with some little startup that might fail any day. I didn't invite her to our office opening. I didn't tell her when we landed our first $1 million contract. I didn't mention when Forbes featured me in their 30 under 30 list. I just let her believe whatever she wanted to believe because I was tired of her negativity and her constant put-downs. My father was different. He passed away when I was in college, but before he died, he told me I could do anything I set my mind to. He was the one who encouraged me to study computer science. He was the one who taught me that my gender didn't limit my potential. I wish he could have seen what I built. I think he would have been proud. Over the years, my relationship with my mother became more and more strained. We'd see each other on holidays, exchange polite conversation, but there was always this underlying tension. She'd still make little comments about how I should settle down, how my biological clock was ticking, how successful I could be if I just found a good husband to support. She had no idea that I was already successful beyond most people's wildest dreams. She had no idea that I had been featured in business magazines, that I spoke at conferences, that venture capitalists sought me out for advice. She just saw me as her disappointing daughter who chose career over family. My brother, on the other hand, was the golden child. He's a middle manager at an insurance company, married with 2 kids, and my mother treats him like he hung the moon. She brags about him to everyone, shows pictures of his kids, talks about how successful and stable he is. Meanwhile, she'd barely mention me, and when she did, it was always with this tone of concern, like I was a charity case she was worried about. Then came the day that changed everything. About 3 weeks ago, my mother called me out of the blue. She said she had been talking to some of her friends at her book club, and apparently one of them had mentioned my company. This friend's son worked in tech and had heard of us. My mother suddenly realized that her daughter's little startup was actually a real company. She sounded shocked on the phone. She said, "Rachel, I had no idea your little project had actually become something. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to scream." I wanted to tell her that I had tried to tell her, that she was the one who laughed at me, that she was the one who never believed in me. But instead, I just said, "You never asked, Mom." She brushed it off and said she wanted to come visit the office. She wanted to see what I had been working on all these years. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I thought maybe this could be a turning point in our relationship. Maybe she would finally see me as successful. Maybe she would finally be proud of me. I scheduled her visit for a Tuesday afternoon, a time when we usually had our all-hands meeting, so she could see the full scope of what we had built. The day of her visit arrived, and I was actually nervous. I wore my best suit, made sure the office looked perfect, prepared a little tour route in my mind. I told my assistant Emma that my mother was coming and to please be welcoming. Emma, who is amazing and knows everything about the company, was excited to meet her. She said, "Oh my God, I can't wait to meet the woman who raised such an incredible boss. If only she knew what was coming." My mother arrived at 2 p.m. sharp. I was in a meeting with our development team when Emma called my office line to let me know she was in the lobby. I wrapped up the meeting quickly and headed down to greet her, but when I got to the lobby, the scene I walked into made my blood run cold. My mother was standing there in her church clothes, pearls and all, talking to Emma at the reception desk. But she wasn't talking to her nicely. She was talking to her with this condescending tone, the way you might talk to someone you think is beneath you. I heard her say, "So you work for my daughter's boss, do you? Is he here? I'd love to meet the man who gave Rachel a chance." Emma looked confused. She said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Rachel is my boss. She's the CEO and founder of the company." My mother laughed. Actually laughed. She said, "Oh, honey, that's sweet that Rachel told you that, but I'm her mother. I know the truth. She's probably an assistant or a manager or something, which is great, but she's not running this place now. Can you please tell me who the actual boss is? I'd like to speak with him." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Emma's face went pale. She looked at me standing a few feet away, clearly unsure of what to do. I walked up to them and said, "Mom, what are you doing?" My mother turned to me and smiled, like nothing was wrong. She said, "Oh, Rachel, there you are. I was just trying to find your boss so I could thank him for giving you such a nice job." This young lady seems confused, though. She thinks you're the CEO. She laughed again, like it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. I took a deep breath. I said, Mom, I am the CEO. I am the founder. This is my company. I built this from nothing. Emma works for me. Everyone here works for me. My mother's smile faded. She looked at me like I had just told her the earth was flat. She said, Rachel, stop being ridiculous. You can't possibly run a company like this. Look at this place. It's huge. There are so many people here. You're telling me you're in charge of all of this? Her tone was so dismissive, so patronizing, that I felt 7 years old again, being told I couldn't possibly understand something because I was just a little girl. I said, Yes, Mom. I am in charge. This is what I've been building for the last 7 years, while you've been dismissing everything I do. Other employees were starting to notice the commotion. People were peeking out from their offices and cubicles. I could see Marcus and Sarah standing by the elevator, clearly concerned. My mother looked around at all the faces watching us, and instead of being embarrassed, she doubled down. She turned to Emma and said, loudly enough for everyone to hear, Can someone please call the actual owner or CEO, or whoever is really in charge here? My daughter is clearly having some kind of episode. This is embarrassing. The lobby went silent. Emma looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I felt humiliation burning through my entire body, but underneath that humiliation was rage, pure white-hot rage. Here was my mother, in the company I built in front of my employees, people who respected me and trusted my leadership, telling them that I was essentially a liar and a fraud. She was undermining everything I had worked for. She was trying to humiliate me in the place where I was most proud, most accomplished. And she was doing it because she fundamentally could not accept that her daughter, a woman, could possibly be successful and powerful in her own right. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have tried to calmly explain again? Would you have just walked away and let her believe what she wanted? Would you have done exactly what I did? Because I'm still not sure if I made the right call, but in that moment it felt like the only option I had left. I looked at my mother, and I felt this clarity wash over me. I was done trying to prove myself to her, done seeking her approval, done allowing her to disrespect me. I turned to Emma and said, in the calmest voice I could manage, Emma, please call security. Emma's eyes went wide. She said, Rachel, are you sure? I nodded. My mother started to laugh again, that same dismissive laugh. She said, Oh, now you're calling security. Rachel, this is getting out of hand. Someone needs to get the real boss down here right now. 2 security guards, Tom and David, arrived within a minute. They knew me well. I'd had lunch with them, asked about their families, given them both bonuses at Christmas. Tom said, Everything okay, Ms. Chen? I looked at my mother and said, This woman is disrupting our workplace and refusing to accept that she's speaking to the owner of this company. I need you to escort her out of the building. The look on my mother's face was something I'll never forget. Shock, disbelief, anger, all rolled into one. She said, Rachel, I'm your mother. You can't do this to me. I said, You don't get to come into my company and humiliate me in front of my staff. You don't get to dismiss my accomplishments. You don't get to tell my employees that I'm a liar. You're not welcome here. Tom and David looked uncomfortable, but they nodded. David said, Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. My mother's shock turned into rage. She started yelling, This is insane. You're all insane. She doesn't own this company. She's my daughter, and she's always been a liar and a fantasist. Someone get me the real CEO right now. Marcus stepped forward from where he'd been watching. He said, Ma'am, I was Rachel's first hire. I've watched her build this company from a one-person operation to what it is today. She is absolutely the CEO and founder, and you need to leave. My mother looked around at all the faces staring at her, and I think it finally started to sink in that everyone was telling her the same thing. But instead of apologizing, instead of being proud, instead of showing any kind of maternal support, she turned on me with venom. She said, You've always been too big for your britches, Rachel. You've always thought you were better than everyone else. This is why you're not married. This is why you're alone. No man wants a woman who acts like this. You're going to die alone and miserable, and it's your own fault." The cruelty of her words hit me like a physical blow, but I didn't let her see it. I just nodded to security. Tom and David gently took my mother by the arms, and she started screaming. She screamed that I was an ungrateful daughter, that I'd forgotten where I came from, that I was going to regret this, that she'd never forgive me. Everyone in the lobby watched as security escorted my own mother out of my building, while she hurled insults at me. When the doors finally closed behind her, the silence was deafening. I stood there, shaking, trying not to cry in front of everyone. Then Sarah started clapping, just slow clapping at first, and then Marcus joined in, and then Emma, and then everyone in the lobby was applauding. Sarah came up to me and hugged me. She said, "I'm so sorry you had to go through that, but you handled it perfectly. No one gets to talk to you like that, not even family." The rest of the afternoon was a blur. I went back to my office and finally let myself cry. I cried for the mother-daughter relationship I never had. I cried for the little girl who just wanted her mom to be proud of her. I cried because I had just burned a bridge with my own mother, and even though she deserved it, it still hurt like hell. In the days that followed, my mother tried calling me dozens of times. She left voicemails that ranged from angry to guilt, trippy to almost apologetic, but not quite. She told me I had embarrassed her. She told me I owed her an apology. She told me that she was just trying to protect me from being taken advantage of. She never once said she was wrong. She never once said she was proud of me. My brother called too. He said Mom was devastated and that I should apologize for making a scene. I told him what actually happened and he went quiet. Then he said, "Look, you know how Mom is. She's from a different generation. You didn't have to humiliate her like that." I said she humiliated herself, and she tried to humiliate me in front of my own employees. I'm done making excuses for her. He sighed and said I was being stubborn, that family was more important than pride. But here's the thing, it wasn't about pride. It was about respect. It was about finally standing up for myself after a lifetime of being told I wasn't good enough. Some of my mother's friends have reached out, saying I should forgive her, that she's my mother and family is everything. But none of them were there. None of them heard the venom in her voice. None of them have lived my life, constantly being told that my dreams were too big, that I should accept less, that I should make myself smaller so other people would feel comfortable. I refuse to do that anymore. My company has rallied around me. Emma made a joke about it being the most dramatic office tour in company history. Marcus told me he was proud of how I handled it. Sarah said if I ever needed to talk, she was there. Even some of the newer employees who witnessed it came by my office to express support. It meant more to me than they'll ever know. I want to be clear about something. I don't hate my mother. I'm sad for her. I'm sad that she's so trapped in her outdated beliefs that she can't see her own daughter's success. I'm sad that she values traditional gender roles more than she values me. I'm sad that she'll probably never understand why what she did was so hurtful and wrong. But I also know that I made the right decision. I couldn't let her disrespect me like that, not in my own company, not in front of people who look to me for leadership. If I had just let it slide, what message would that have sent? That it's okay to dismiss me, that I don't deserve respect. No, I've worked too hard and come too far to accept that. The bottom line is this: I built something incredible. I created jobs, I built wealth, I proved that I could succeed in a male-dominated industry, and I did it all without my mother's support or belief. Her inability to accept that reality is her problem, not mine. I refuse to shrink myself to fit into her narrow view of what a woman should be. I refuse to apologize for my success, and I refuse to allow anyone, even my own mother, to treat me with such blatant disrespect. So was I wrong? I don't think so, but I want to hear from you. Like this video if you think I did the right thing. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one, and please Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you would have handled it differently. Tell me if you've dealt with family members who refuse to support your dreams. Tell me if I'm the villain here or if my mother got exactly what she deserved. I need to know I'm not crazy for doing what I did. I'll see you all in the next story.